My name is Tobias Kopka. I'm let me first see the clicker and then arrive on stage. Happy to be here. It's good morning on the third day of GameOn. Now that it's back after 5 years. I wanted to come for many years before, but this is the first year and I'm very happy because getting events back on their feet is not easy in this time. So, and it's a beautiful first edition after a longer pause. So amazing. Yeah, hi, I'm Tobias. I work on events for the last 15 years. I have a small program agency called Curatomic, and we work with different events. And like Clara mentioned, I also work with VR and dance these days and as a coach. This talk is a little bit unorthodox because Arturas, when he invited me, wanted me to speak about also how a career a little bit outside of the trodden path came to life and what helped me actually in moving forwards with different approaches. And the core topics will be then community, competition, and also kind of the mindset, or how I had to learn the hard way to develop a mindset, getting comfortable in the unknown, or a little more in the unknown. So I love bringing people together. That's what connects all of the things what I did over the last 20, 30 years. It's via games, interactive experiences, and also events. It's like, it could be via VR and dance performances on the top left. It is like via in the demo scene, which is like, I will talk a little more about that in a second. It's like an old cracker scene / hacker community, which competes in creating awesome art, digital art, or via events and exhibitions and conferences, of course, to connect people. And this is not about like telling a bigger story how amazing I am. I just want to share actually more what helped over time actually to feel better while moving forward into new fields. And actually, because for a long while, I didn't feel great and well going on stage and doing something and bringing people together. So right now, just for the context, I work on Gamescom Congress, which is like games having an impact in more than entertainment. So it could be for health, could be in automotive, it could be in other industries, tech, and yeah, other fields like education, of course. Before, I started like really with all different kinds of events. Covadis in Berlin was a business conference, the leading one connected to Games Week Berlin. Ludische Zurich Game Festival was more about art and games, so art, technology, and the business side. So to help the next generation actually get a better business knowledge, because in the Swiss community, that's in Switzerland, they had great tech universities, they had great art universities, but people didn't know how to, or at least there were not that many veterans around actually to educate the next generation how to get into the games industry and move forward there. And then, of course, like Reboot Develop in Canada, we did one edition in 2019, which wasn't a great choice. But yeah, you don't know the unknown unknowns, right? So there was one edition going there into the national park in Banff, and but then there was no way to do a follow-up. So that took also 5 years to continue. Maybe next year it will continue again. And where did all of that start? I grew up, as I mentioned, in a demo scene, which is like a community of people creating audiovisual art, kind of like music videos, just created from software. It can be real time, usually it's real time, it's procedural, it's in very small sizes, and people compete in this competition to create videos just in a few kilobytes. So it's all software based, and actually we brought that demo scene as the first digital culture worldwide ever into UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage. So UNESCO, like in 2019, accepted first time in Finland, then in Germany, then in Poland, now Netherlands and Switzerland, and we are shooting for more countries, that actually digital culture is a real culture. That what we do as gamers, as demo sceners, as the open source community, etc., there's many more communities which could be seen as intangible cultural heritage. But yeah, we started with the demo scene to open the doors a little bit. I will talk about that more, how that functions and how the scene has values, which is very much aligned to actually what games and game developers, how they relate to each other. And lastly, as you see, if you love bringing people together, the pandemic, of course, had many impacts, but if there was no way to do things. So my partner, she's a choreographer, and myself, we got together at home and there were no events to do. We could do online events, yes, but online events are not the same, right? Also for the creators. It's a drag to create, it's a lot of organization to create online events, or the same amount actually as physical events, but the challenge is when everybody comes together in a physical event, then actually you get a lot of dopamine, you get a lot of positive energy from creating this. But for online events, that's not the same. So we started experimenting with bringing people together via VR and dance, and actually bring people together in performances where people don't see each other, who are dancing with each other. So you see, like in this middle small image, there's like Helena, she's a performer who she just sees a black space in front of her eyes. And the guest, an older lady, she has the controller, and wherever she moves the controller, she leaves traces in the space. It's like these lines you see in the background. And so one person is in VR, but just sees these traces. The other person is outside and sees the body of the performer, but they can't see each other into the eyes. It sounds artificial, it's arty for sure, but we got like government grants twice on federal level in Germany. We showed it everywhere around. And we also, I show you a little bit about a trailer from that. We work with live LED setups, live DJing, etc. So it needs 8 to 10 people to show the thing. But it's again about bringing people together via different means, because people wrote us so many feedback letters, more than 200, how much this emotionally touched them. So if you're creators, setting artificial boundaries sometimes makes us actually connect more. If you know that maybe from some games, if they put like an artificial boundary, you can't talk to each other, you have to use certain movements, or you can't do this or that. That limitation actually makes us feel more connected oftentimes. But okay, let me show you something and then I get to the actual topic. It's like 3 minutes. naturally, as it was in a pandemic or started in a pandemic, we had also to take care that you didn't put people too closely together. You saw the masks and everything. But we use approach also from software development. We go out very early with beta tests with our audience. We go very out early to test out. We hope to bring it like next year also to GameOn, if possible, with support by the government. But yeah, we have to see. So to come back, so how did I end up there, or how did we end up there? Or to reframe the question differently, in times of rapid change, how do we find our direction? Because for me, when starting, we had absolutely no clue. So starting in the 90s, it's not the same as 100% like nowadays, because the advent of AI will accelerate things much faster than it was by then, but also I was from a family which was, like most families, I think, the main media were linear media. The main cultural reference was books, what we were striving for, and magazines and literature. So there was no way actually to know what kind of world awaits us in 5 or 10 or 15 years, like with the advent of internet, etc. Of course, we saw the emergence of home computing. Who's aware of these things in the background, which I put there? 1, 2. So that's okay. So that's like crack intros. These were small introductions which were put in front of cracked computer games. So cracked means people took out the copy protection in the 80s and 90s and then put their name in front of it, kind of like a digital graffiti. So they put their name. This was Dynastar and 100. It was strong youth culture, and people put their names as they were like 14, 15, 16, but many people from that scene actually then later on went into game development, created engines, went into security, into many other fields. So we saw the emergence of home computing, we saw the arrival of the internet, and so there was a lot of opportunities, but also uncertainties, because, I mean, yeah, Amazon started in 95, right? So this was 90, roughly. And many other things came only successfully, so we had no clue where we are going. So suddenly we could connect to people from all over the world, but we didn't know what that means. So so how do you navigate in a space which lacks clear paths and moves into uncharted territories? Whoever of you was yesterday here at Alexei's talk from Stalker at the end of the day, what he said in his talk, what I really liked, was that whenever you move into new fields, it will be inefficient, because no one did it, right? There's no way how you can have a clear procedure, a clear process of moving forward. And so in the 90s, again, that was not a clear history at all. I did an education in physics. I did a master in media studies because, yeah, media seems to be important. And I disregarded computers. Yes, it's my love. And I love computers in a demo scene. I did a master in political science and worked then at a film school in Cologne, which became the Cologne Game Lab later on, which is like one of the more artistic, playful, explorative universities in Germany. So only later I learned actually about research by Carol Dweck. She's a researcher from university in Stanford, and moved around in the US a lot, about mindset. And this is not a simple fact from self-help books, as important they are, so I'm not, but mindset is really well researched, that we either fall into a so-called fixed mindset or a so-called flexible mindset, which means, and yes, a few percentages, if we're one or the other, is like genetically pre-supported, but very big part of that is actually culture. And our culture, at least in Germany, in the schools, was very much for a long while that teachers believed they would know how someone will develop, what their chances of getting better, of learning something, of getting to a certain quality level are. And this would be the whole thing about Carol Dweck's research would be a full talk in its own, but this thing of knowing what someone can do and get to, that would be like one of the center points of a fixed mindset. You actually believe you have a certain resources, and only then and certain resources, and only if you hone that skill, then you have actually a chance to move on. And the opposite would be like a flexible mindset, where actually, like you read here or have time to read, that moving into a space is actually, if it's scary, if it's like unknown, if you don't know, actually that's a good challenge. That it's actually, you might fail, you hear this in business talks a lot, right? Fail often, fail fast. But what's behind is actually this, you won't feel great while doing it. Failing sucks, of course. But moving into it, there's a chance to grow. And this kind of different mindsets, there's a whole list of qualities and etc. how you can compare one with the other, or how it has an impact. The good news is you can educate and teach yourself of getting from a fixed mindset, which most of us have from school, because then of course you take these narratives imposed on us. I don't know, in Germany it would be math and gender, it would be min topics and gender. So there's like what someone can achieve is maybe connected to gender or not. That was be around for a long while, that teachers thought one can do the other or not, which is apparently in the East a little bit different and actually better, but there's probably your own narratives which people have imposed on you. And if we take that over, if we take that on, if we believe in it, then we come into this thing, yes, I am that, and I can't because. And this can't because, that's an interesting point to listen to. So the important part is that actually that play leads to iteration. Of course, you know this from if you're in game dev, you know that you ideate early, you try to iterate early, you try to bring out an early prototype early to your audience to find out what sticks, what functions with them, what functions with you, and early go out. And this all reduces actually the fear of failure. The mindset side can help that, but of course procedures and processes can help that with that too. And hopefully, again, I can only lead the direction. This helps with viewing uncertainty actually as an opportunity. That actually, if something is uncertain, there's a space you can actually carve something out for yourself and for the group around you. Another one, so that would be the first factor, going from a fixed to a flexible mindset, ideally. A second supporter, which helped me over the years, was coming from the demo scene I mentioned here, but the games industry works very similar. Its studios are in friendly competition, you could say. Of course, people are in competition in the marketplace, but here in the demo scene it was the same. This is like an image from a party we are running for 25 years. It's from Cologne, like this was 2019, but this year was also again the biggest edition. 500 people come there. And they submit software to compete in different categories. That could be pixel graphics, which is rendered via software. It could be sound, procedural sound, done via trackers. It could be also a full demo, which is like a music video created via software. And everybody in the community has a vote. So whenever you enter a demo party, you get a vote key, which is kind of a hash code, and then you can vote in the different categories. And that is actually happening since the late 80s. First, people came together to copy games, sure, but then later on, actually, the illegal scene disbanded from the legal scene, and since then people only come together actually for competing in these competitions, and that helps a lot because you are voted by the community, so you're voted by your peers. So this drives improvement and innovation. Of course, it fosters goal setting and keeps us striving for better, of course, achievements. Oh, by the way, the graphics you see, like that's all examples from the performances. We show them later on different exhibitions that we actually put the 3D data into a space that people can interact with it, but that's just on the side for some illustrations. So, coming from the demo scene, it helped, and coming to games for the first time, like in 2000, I think my first convention, like a big convention, was like Games Convention in Leipzig. So that was before Gamescom, like 2007 or so. Before that, I was always on demo scene events with game people. And I realized it's actually the same kind of mindset. It is that people, if you, let me ask, who of you is in game development? So half of it. And who is interested, and who is interested in game development? So that's basically everybody, and 2 or 3 are enjoying games. Who is mostly enjoying games? Yeah, like 3, so it's like 3 parts. Okay, that helps me a little bit, like to relate better. So if you go to the games industry, whoever is in it knows that. It's like, I would say it's at least, yeah, even after 15, 20 years, it's still the most interesting place to connect to people, because even if you're in big AAA studios locked behind NDAs, which means you actually can't talk about what you're working on, people still strongly bond actually about what they do and what they're allowed to talk about. And it is kind of this, and also on CEO level, not only on production level. People on CEO level who run their studios for a long while, they are in this kind of friendly competition, and it has a big impact actually on broadening your barriers and boundaries. But you had time to read this. In the competition, in the demo scene, it's one thing to say, okay, I'm in esports, I'm in competitive games, I'm in the demo scene in competition, but then finding a way, do I actually feel like it? Is it actually the right community for me? Because competition for me, as much it helps to strive and put always more things on top of your list, depending on how your mindset is structured, it can feel bad. And for me, at least, it felt bad for a long while, even though I loved the community. But I felt I was never good enough. And so finding a way there took a while. So it's like there's this external competition. Much more healthy is, of course, to have this internal competition that you compete with yourself to get better, like a week ago or a month ago or a year ago, because that's healthy. That's what you can influence. You can't influence what others actually do. That's out of and yeah, in terms of health and mental health, it's helpful to keep these 2 things in balance. And lastly, what helps, of course, you know that the community can be a dangerous place if we see it like as anonymous communities, which are which actually don't have shared values. But if you go to communities, it can be audio producers, it can be game developers as a broad sense, it can be, I mean, you know which communities you are involved in. They can be, if they're around about the same values, then they can give you it gave me at least, very strong support networks. It can lead to collaborative problem solving, and especially people to relate to. I showed you all these images like from the different events I worked on, but it was not a success story. Of course, we had failures on the way. My first big event, I almost went into burnout, like Next Level, which was an event I didn't know yet. understand how to ask for help, how to involve others actually to take the workload away, because I was still in this fixed mindset. Oh, I am the curator. I should know. I should be the one who creates and decides and brings it all together magically. The small incremental steps of all these different conversations, which then lead up to something like an event like GameOn. These all small steps, I didn't know that yet. And so I went right away into burnout in 2009-10. And then from there, of course, you learn to better work with your inner values, your inner drivers, etc. And then actually, and also I learned then to meditate, to ground myself, to different techniques actually to help me. And so there's the other people, there's the other game, which helps you, but again, it needs like the inner game as well. And community is not only a theoretical thing, also to speak about the games industry. Montreal, for example, you know, maybe many studios which are in Montreal is one of the biggest hubs of the games industry. What always struck me when I was first time in Montreal, wherever you went in a studio, the people directed you to the other studios. Oh, you have to get to know these people. Oh, do you know them already, etc. So there was 2014-15 when I was first time there. And the people, even though they were in competition until today, they make sure that talent doesn't get lost for the community. So if one studio closes, that's what we hear on the news, and it's not great times, of course, when people are let go. People, as long as they can, they make sure that people actually don't move away, that they find other studios to work on, that even though if it's their cherished graphics programmer, or to make sure that people at least then continue on another studio as part of your community. Because they say, and they said always, the marketplace is tough enough. I mean, on the app stores, on whatnot, we are competing there anyway, but it would be the most stupid in the world then to compete within our community for that, because the big competition is out there. And that would be, of course, also advice towards, in Germany we had that also for a long time, that actually the different areas competed a lot. We had two associations which competed with each other. We only got the leverage to bring Merkel and others to Gamescom from the moment we had only one association, so one voice actually, and not to fight too much in the community with each other for talent, etc. So it's like, it has like effects on all these levels. So lastly, this sounds like a standard, but going somewhere, or what taught me the demo scene and everything, is like building connections before I need them. It's like really going from actual human curious interest to find out what is something what the other person interests. What do they stand for? I mean, that is the strongest bonding effect in building human relations, if you have a genuine interest. Of course, there's a theory behind. You can also read Dale Carnegie, How to Influence People, and I should have written that down. Dale Carnegie, it's a classic from almost the 30s on how you can also leverage that to be professional in networking. But genuine human interest goes a long way, because in the end, things will go to shit in one point in time, and it's normal. And then the question is, who can you trust? Who looks around for you? Who has maybe also ideas where you can go, where you can work together? One example, DevCom, the event we worked on as a good and really emotional and strong team in 2018, 19, 20. So when our Covades and Respawn were ending and DevCom was starting, actually the company was owned by a publishing house by the time. And some leadership issues happened that actually most of the team left and moved to other places. it took then its own story in itself. I moved to Switzerland. I mean, I lived in Cologne, but I started like working on Ludicious and Reboot. But in the long run, everybody, almost of the whole team, is now working together again, actually on DevCon, because people had in mind how good it was to work on something together. The trust was there. And then after the leadership issues were sorted out, or the ownership issues were sorted out, actually everybody came together again. I'm consulting there, but it is don't burn the bridges, right? So go there before you need it. And that's what I also do. That's why I showed you the art stuff. The art things now approaching the art world or the performance and VR world. It's also, again, going first, finding out who are the people and what are their interests, and then connect from there. Because whatever happens in life, it's always, that's a quote from Rami, everything happens through people. Ever, always. Because, yeah, we can't do shit alone. So it's always like going that way. So competition doesn't exclude collaboration, naturally. But it helps also, if you see it again on a company level, you can also keep your competitors close, right? I mean, actually, you have more knowledge and more insight, even if you see it strategically, if you are close with your competing people. If you're an artist, get to know the other artists in your field. They are not dangerous. They are the people to learn from. And actually, if you remember, if you look into old cities, and you're wondering why is all these goldsmiths in one big street next to each other, or all the butchers are in one street next to each other. If you see it from a competitive standpoint, it's stupid, right? So why would all the bars are in one street? But they bring actually more value, more critical mass to everybody in being close to each other. And kind of this works on many levels. So yeah, even keeping your competitors close can help. So the answer on, of course, going to the AI revolution, I'm not trying to paint a big picture. It's like really getting used in, I think, yeah, there's 2 books right now. Let me look at the time. Yeah, so we're still good. There's 2 books right now. Of course, the Singularity is Nearer by Ray Kurzweil. It's kind of an update of his 2005 book, where he makes a very believable argument that the rate of change is it's not linear, but even the rate of change of innovation is exponential. That's the word, what we learned in the pandemic. So the rate of change is exponential, which means it's not only that things are added more and more, faster and faster. We know that from all the updates in the app stores and a new tool to play around with Gen AI, but that's only the start. That's actually a very small start. So how to move in these fields, which is completely overwhelming with limitless options, it's mostly asking questions. Which are your strategies for decision making in this field? What stories do you tell yourself? And when asking those stories, which this is what I am, this is what I'm good at, to ask yourself, what values do I actually reflect in that moment when I say that? Is it me? Is it really my core values? Every human has core values. They are kind of baked in. For some it's like they get really riled up if something unjust happens. Others can just walk by. For them maybe love is a core value, or excellence, or respect and respectful connection. For me, respect and connection is a core value. So if I work in a job and a trajectory where my core values are actually kind of not respected, then I have a very hard time. And that's always when people have this feeling, yeah, I made this whole career, but I just don't feel right. Then it's maybe oftentimes a moment to look at your core values. So first to find them, then staying true to that, and then learning to help what keeps ourselves on track. Just to come to a close. This is like a quick trailer from a performance piece we just recently showed at a maze. And also one person is in VR again, one person is painting on paper. And the person in VR has the job to show what they see in VR via their body movements to the person who's painting on paper. And then they switch roles. Super simple setup, again, very strong emotional reactions. Of course, this is not possible without public support, so that needs that from time to time, but also this year in Germany, because of the war, because of many other reasons, all public funds and cultural funding are slashed and going down, even on that end. So we keep doing that with our team as long as we're able to pay them and from time to time get a grant. So we continue on that end. But it's like, yeah, maybe for a recap, yeah, let's keep it there. So that's the artistic work. It's another talk. I just want to show you that. So as a recap, balance external and internal motivators. Check that you're not only motivated by the external motivators. Learn to embrace a playful mindset, leverage competition for growth, but actually not only externally. Find or create your community. It depends on, go there where the people are who are interested in what you do, especially do. And everything happens through people. There's just a software update popping up, that's why I was hesitating. Everything happens to people again. So try to navigate like definitely the whole phase of uncertainty with kind of this, it's no one will do that for us. We can only do that for ourselves, to navigate that with confidence. So thank you very much. I'm Tobias, that's LinkedIn and Instagram if you want to connect. And thank you very much. I'm around for some questions.
Hello, Tobias. Thank you for the speech. I happen to have a question regarding how one person can change over time. And you mentioned the importance of the playful mindset. That's what you call it. But it's sort of easy over time, I reckon, to fall into some sort of a complacency. So
to fall into
complacency, you know, like
complacency.
Yeah, complacency. Yeah. So how does one combat that, and how does one basically push oneself to not be complacent and to keep on pursuing, while also not causing oneself harm from overworking or from just basically torturing oneself?
Yeah, I should have put a disclaimer. Of course, the good thing is for us, as I'm self-employed and my partner, she's also self-employed, we can work and travel together. But of course, that doesn't happen overnight. It took also 10 years to build kind of this free way of traveling and working, just as a disclaimer. So I because you mentioned overworking, so it's helpful if your partner is in the same thing, but it doesn't have to be. Sometimes it's also more healthy actually to have a partner who's not in the same thing. So for 20 years we weren't in the same thing, and then in the pandemic we said, okay, she was from academia and also from choreography, or is, and I'm again from games, etc. So maybe there's something to bring together. So that just complacency. I just recently read a book twice, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And it's, I can recommend it. It's from 2016. It's a little bit pre-pandemic, but still, it sounds like it's like not about caring, but it's actually the opposite. It's about being vulnerable and open in the fields where you really want to strive for, and the others leave them out. So focus on few things which are really important for you, and for the rest don't care about it. But this vulnerability is important to not be entitled, because complacency or entitlement, I see that connected. There's this risk that we feel we deserve something, and this is the worst part of, or a lot of toxicity comes from this thing of believing we deserve something. We have achieved something and now we deserve it. I'm not sure if that goes in the same direction, but I would probably start there. And in terms of the methods which help, I mean, Carol recommends like few things, but it really starts with small things of broadening your comfort zone via little steps, step by step, to actually make yourself slowly feel. It's like getting out of the fear of heights or something, to make yourself actually slowly feel, oh, this is okay to venture without knowing. It's okay to take the next step actually without having everything already sorted out and being clear about it. Because, yeah, that would be like two answers, but it's of course a longer question.